Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the Corn Productions Deep Dive TV podcast with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the original Quantum Leap, Season 5, Episode 5, titled Killin Time. The episode's description reads as follows. Sam leaps into a hostage situation as a fugitive killer. The real killer breaks out of the project facility and is on the run in 1999. The episode was written by Tommy Thompson. His last effort was the previous episode, Nowhere to Run. The episode was directed by Michael Watkins. This is his last directorial stint on the series. He did 6 episodes in total. The episode takes place on June 18th, 1958, and originally aired on October 20th, 1992. Before any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms this podcast is now available on, please follow. And feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right, shout-outs this week.
All right.
I got Mimi Gallup, of course. She says, this orderly, the one in the previous episode, Nowhere to Run, reminds me of Butch, the orderly in Shock Theater. Yes, I think we did kind of reference him.
Yep.
She says, a tale of two bad orderlies, not to mention the bad orderlies in Ben Interrupted. And yes, that is also a very good example. She asked the question, my main question is why there was a security guard in the waiting room with Leanne Stiles leaped in there. That is a very good question. I'm going to save my comments about that because I have a lot to say about that and some information to pull in regarding that situation.
Right. I mean, we don't know if that happened immediately when he leaped in, right?
Right. Well,
it could have been like a little bit later when they realized who he was.
Right.
Somebody went in to guard him. I
mean, maybe that is a good explanation to my whole problem with everything that took place in that early part of the episode. But we're going to discuss that.
I think what we can glean from this entire situation is everyone at the project kind of sucks.
Yeah, security.
Like everybody.
Yeah.
There's not one competent person except maybe Al in this whole building.
And sometimes I even question Al. But yeah, once again, I will discuss that further when we get there, because I do have some things to say about it. So Ziggy is just a modern computer that makes a lot of mistakes. All right, yeah, but that's not what we've been told, Mimi. We've been told that this is a super advanced parallel hybrid computer with an ego. We've been told that this is like a really great computer. Now, granted, a really great computer in 1999, the actual 1999, would not be all that impressive.
Especially 1990, what are we at?
Right.
What year are we in?
We are in 1999. I mean, point.
Filming year.
Oh, filming year? Yeah, that would be 1992.
92.
Yes. But even still, like, we're told that this is a super advanced computer. I mean, right now, I'm pretty sure that there's AI that could do a better job than Ziggy could. But of course, we're 24 years after this,
right.
So even still.
But it makes it worse that new Ziggy was even worse than old Ziggy.
Right, exactly. All right, so Alpha says, I actually really enjoy both episodes where the host is a veteran of the Vietnam War. I think you will cover The Beast Within later this year. Yes, we will. That's one of the final episodes of Season 5 and the series. Why do I like the acting of the grieving father sheriff in Killing Time? You can feel his perfect mixture of sadness and suppressed rage with each line he delivers. I absolutely agree with that. He's great in this episode. And he actually... there's the same connection in The Beast Within. There's a similar character within that episode that also puts in a really good performance. That's actually Pat Skipper, who was in the X-Files as Scully's brother at one point. Now, Brian, from alsplace.com.
Oh, I didn't see these comments.
alsquantumleap.com. He was not too convinced with your comments about... about Sam only falling in love a couple of times. He says Sam has fallen in love with more women in 5 years than I will
said
ever.
He only slept with someone a couple of times.
Actually, you didn't.
And then my next line that said he only fell in love a couple times was sarcasm.
Oh, okay. See, well, I missed the sarcasm, and apparently Brian did as well. And in relation to our speculation about whether Brian would have seen this, the opening on his own or not, because he only listens or doesn't listen to us at all or whatever. He just said yes to all of it. So, in other words, all of those scenarios are true. Okay, and one final shout out, which I did not officially put in my notes, but for Damon from Fandom Entanglement, Damon has actually been sharing our podcast
Yes.
in
Thank
his
you for
site.
that.
So thank you very much for that. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts overall on this episode?
It's a good episode. It's another, one of these season 5 episodes where they're trying something a little bit different. I think it worked. And I know we talked about this last week, but we should talk about it now that we're actually talking about the episode. It did a really good job of doing what the new series tried to do through its entire run and accomplished some of the time.
Yeah, some of the times it did very well, but
I feel like this is what they were looking at.
Mhm.
If they're looking at something in the original series to pull from, this would be it. Like, this is the episode of the original series that does this the most, as far as going back and forth between the Leap and the Project.
I will tell you what the difference is. There are not 10 different characters in this episode.
Right.
Especially on the Project side. There's only Al, Leon Stiles, and Gushy.
Right.
And a little bit of Ziggy. There's not like 10 different people we're trying to get into the mix.
Right.
Like, there were some episodes in the new series where like, why do we have this random Addison and Jen scene that doesn't need to be in this episode? This should be specifically about the story that involved the riots, the LA riots, I think it was. It should have been a magic story through and through. Why do we have this scene with Addison and Jen? It doesn't belong in this episode. It should be all about magic. We should be focusing there, and I think that's where the new series kind of fell down a little bit. Is that they were just trying to get too many characters, too much, of
Right.
the time.
Well, because they had,
Yeah.
a 5-person main cast,
right.
and they, had to include them all each week.
Maybe if they narrowed the focus and gave, some of the other actors like a line or two, but focus on one specific
Right.
character, it might have worked a little bit better.
But in this episode, Killin Time, I think they did a great job of balancing
Absolutely.
the stories. And again, this is something I said last week when we first started talking about this a little bit, but this episode's really about what's happening at the Project. Now, there's some great stuff going on in the Leap as well, but it's smaller focus, right? And basically, it's a bottle episode for Sam. He doesn't leave one room the entire episode.
Right.
The whole episode for Sam takes place in that living room.
Right.
As well as for the character of Carol. Becky does get to leave the house and go outside, but even the outside characters, they're just right there. They're not going anywhere. So you have two sets. You got the living room and you got the front yard.
Right.
And it's all just conversation based, right? And there's not really a lot of movement. There's not different locations. There's not any outfit changes. It's all like a couple hours in one room.
Right.
Whereas all the action and big stuff is happening back at the Project. Of course, not a bottle episode for Scott because he did get to shoot a Leon scene.
Oh, yes,
which
that's
is
right.
great. I love that. And I think that it's another great episode for Dean Stockwell. He's had a lot of really great episodes in the last bunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where, he actually gets to interact with things in this episode because we're seeing the real him and not the hologram him.
Right.
Which, is unusual.
Yeah. All right, so great episode. One problem. How this episode begins is absolute nonsense. What actually leads into this scenario just doesn't make any sense. No matter what way you slice it, this goes back to Mimi Gallup's question, like how Leon got the gun in the first place.
Right.
Now, I actually got information from Al's Place, QuantumLeap.com, the website, Brian Green's website. I actually knew this already. I'm pretty sure that I got my original source was that website, but there was a deleted scene that explains this.
Well, I don't think it would have explained it completely.
No,
but it would have helped.
Right. So either way, it's a giant hole in this episode.
Yeah.
But okay, so the explanation is this: that scene was left on the cutting room floor. A scene which was filmed but dropped shows Al, Gushy, and a Marine guard enter the waiting room with Stiles. Stiles overpowers the guard and takes his gun. If you look closely in the background, you can see the Marine lying on the floor by the table. But this actually says that Al, Gushy, and the Marine entered the room. So I'm thinking not only did they delete the scene, but they refilmed some things.
Well, I think the worst part of it for me is the fact that Al says, "Where'd you get that gun?"
Right.
And he says it multiple times in the episode. He tells Sam, somehow he got a gun.
Right, okay.
Like, the dude's on the floor.
Right.
We don't acknowledge him. We don't acknowledge he got the gun from a guard.
Right. All right, so my question is, why is an armed guard going into the waiting room?
Well, because he's a killer. I mean, I get that.
Fine.
I get it, that they wanted to, like, guard him.
Okay, but why
maybe...
go in with lethal force?
Yeah, why didn't they just guard like the outside of the door?
Or like bring in a taser or something, or like a dart gun, which Al uses later in the episode.
Right, that would have been a good idea.
Why are we going in there with a gun? Like, we know that this person dies, that's going to be not good for Sam Beckett. So why are we bringing guns into the waiting room?
I'm going to guess they panicked when they realized he's in a psycho killer.
Right, maybe.
But yeah, why'd they even need to send anybody in at that point? Just talk to him through the intercom.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like, the setup for this episode doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It requires a lot of suspension of disbelief and a lot of fan waking.
I think instead of deleting that scene, they should have given us more.
Right.
Give us more about how do we get to this moment.
Right.
And I get that they, probably crunched for time and they wanted to just tell the story they wanted to tell.
Right.
But, yeah, it is kind of a wanky setup.
So, I wrote stories in the past, and I understand that occasionally you fall in love with this idea. You can't make it make sense, though, so you kind of just fudge it and hope that nobody notices. This kind of smacks of that. They had this great idea that they loved, but they couldn't figure out how to make it work logically, so they just did this and just hoped that we wouldn't ask this question.
Yeah.
But, of course, we were going to.
I mean, there definitely would have been smoother ways to get Leon to escape.
Right. Now, that being said, everything that results from this is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely a worthwhile episode to suspend your disbelief for. But, we can't let this go without comment because we are who we are. And, of course, we have to talk about this.
And this is a very secure facility.
Yeah.
Full of military personnel at the highest, level of clearance.
Yeah.
These should all be capable people working here.
Yes, you would think so. The security is pretty bad here. They should just be fired en masse because, apparently, all you need to do to get out of this top secret, super duper secret project is, go down the hall, take a left, and then you're out. Anyway. So the setup for this episode doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The episode that results after that is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Yeah. All right. So do we have anything else to say before diving in?
Let's just go for it. I'm sure we'll come up with lots more discussion as we go.
Yes. So Sam leaps in. He's looking out a window with a gun in hand. A calendar reveals that the year is 1958. The mood is ominous. A woman that Sam was not aware was there asks him, "How long are you going to keep us tied up for?" She's got a child with her, and she asks what he wants. Sam, confused, says he doesn't want anything. The little girl recognizes Sam's host on the TV. Sam watches the report, realizing he's Leon Stiles and a killer, and he says, "Oh boy." Leon Stiles is played by Cameron Dye, 67 credits for him, including the reboot of the Wonder Years, which means he's still acting.
Yep.
An episode of Bones and 2 episodes of Smallville. As a villain who tries to use Clark in Sam Bailyn, I remember this guy. I did not recognize him at all as Leon Stiles.
Okay. He was also in 2 episodes of Frasier and 1 episode of Switched at Birth. And this is one of those instances where we have a Leapy who, actually is a character as opposed to just a mirror image.
And Carol is played by Connie Ray, 62 credits for her, including Space Jam, Stuart Little, and The Time Machine.
1 episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And, of course, the ones I was coming up with last week. She was in all 20 episodes of The Torkelsons, plus the 13 episodes of Almost Home, which was the sequel series to that, with Olivia Burnett.
Oh, okay.
Which is
a name you couldn't come up with.
I couldn't come up with Olivia Burnett last week, but I did come up with Connie Ray. I was kind of impressed with myself on that one.
You were that was pretty impressive for you, for sure.
For me, yeah, because I'm sucked at this without having the notes in front of me. Every word that comes out of my mouth here as far as actors and characters, if I'm not going, what was their name? It's because I have it written in front of me.
Right.
Lots of prep for this.
So Becky, her daughter, is played by Beverly Mitchell, 38 credits for her, including Seventh Heaven, which it has come under some kind of controversy thanks to the star engaging in less than stellar activities. I'm not going to go any further into that. But she was also in Saw 2 and Baywatch.
1 episode of Melrose Place and some Christmas movies on her.
I did notice that, yes. After the credits, Sam continues to listen to the reports, learning more about who he is.
Couple things. The reporter here Let me do him too, since we're doing people. Louis Dauber plays the reporter. He was in an episode of Scrubs, an episode of Jag, and the movie Jingle All the Way.
Ah, yes, with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And the date, we have an interesting tidbit about the date. So the date on the calendar, which is also the leap-in date, is Thursday, June 18th, 1958.
Oh, yeah.
In real life, June 18th was actually a Wednesday.
Right.
They do that a lot in this series.
That also came from houseplace.com, Quantum Leap fan site, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, and it's out there in other places too.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of instances of dates that don't line up in this series. And then you remember, like, why is because you didn't, have in the early 90s the quick access to just, like, reference something like that and see what date was it.
Yeah, Google was not a thing.
Yeah, so they just either made stuff up or they tried looking at it but, like, miscounted. I don't know.
Yeah.
But over and over again in this series, we're seeing, like, dates that don't line up, full moons that don't line up, like, these weird little, like, time instances that are just kind of hokey.
Mm-hmm. So Carol, the mother, suggests she has jewelry in the bedroom. Sam says he doesn't want that. He just needs a second to figure out what's going on.
And we learned from the broadcast that Leon Stiles, he's described as an illiterate drifter. It's important to know. And he already killed 2 deputies during his escape, which led to this moment. And a third is in the hospital.
Becky, the young daughter, quietly asks Sam if he's going to kill them. And Sam basically like gets this expression like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. Sam tries to reassure her that he won't, forgetting that he's still holding a gun. He puts it to the side and says, of course not. Carol, of course, is not convinced, and Sam asks the empty chair where Al is. Cut to Project Quantum Leap. Al is concerned because Leon Stiles has somehow gotten a gun. Wow, that's terrible. Al is concerned. That's how I'm characterizing this moment. I hope because I actually wrote this recap for the Brian Green. And I hope he changed that because that's terrible.
I don't know if he changed that, but I do know there were a lot more changes done this week because I sent him some edits.
Gotcha.
As I was reading it. The biggest one, which this confused me, is how to spell Leon Stiles.
Okay.
In my notes, I spelled it the same way you did, Styles, throughout my entire notes. And then I'm reading through Al's Place, look for any more tidbits I didn't catch. And I realized it's Stiles there, but then you look at the picture in this episode where we see his name on the screen. It's spelled Stiles.
Oh, interesting.
And you did it wrong in the recap. I did it wrong in my notes. All the other parts of the Al's Place page also spelled it with a Y. Everywhere spelled it with a Y, and it's an I.
So what did Internet Movie Database say?
I.
Oh, okay.
I meant to also check beyond the mirror image to see what Matt said, but I didn't actually get that far. But I double-checked the episode itself to make sure, am I looking at that right? And yes, when his name comes on the screen, it's definitely spelled with an I. So that's canon right there. It's in the episode.
Huh.
So yeah, we all had it spelled wrong. And I'm feeling like this is some Mandela effect thing. Because I can see his name with a Y, like, that's how his name's supposed to be spelled.
Because
that's how it's always been spelled.
Right. I think that's because it just makes logical sense. That would be that's how it would be spelled.
So that was the biggest edit I sent him. But there were some other little, like, grammatical and spelling errors and things like that.
Oh.
I don't know if they came from you or, from the other editing.
I'm sure they did, and Brian just didn't catch them. But anyway, and I guess I accidentally started reading my notes from this scene because I have the explanation of that deleted scene here. And I think I just started reading that part of my notes that was not actually supposed to be a part of that. But anyway, so he starts interrogating Al about where he is. Al doesn't answer the questions. Under duress, Al is taken into the project where they run into Gushy, and he mistakes him for Dr. Beckett. Okay, I'm sorry. Gushy, how long have you worked here? You don't know that this is not Sam Beckett?
Yeah, it's showing us that Gushy's not that bright. And this isn't the only time in this episode he's going to say something stupid.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we have a reprise for Gushy for Dennis Wolfberg, so welcome back. I don't think we'll see him again until the finale of the series.
Possibly, yeah. But we saw him recently.
Yes.
So he's...
Yep.
He's the one that they got back.
Right.
For season 5.
Yep.
But yeah, it takes him a minute. Like, it's not until the gun is, like, out and still he's like...
Dr. Beckett?
Yeah.
Why are you holding a gun to Al? Like, again, how long have you worked here that you don't know this is not Dr.
And also
Beckett?
this goes to what you said before, that it doesn't fit with the deleted scene.
Right,
where he would have been present for all of this happening in the first place.
According to this explanation, Gushy was a part of that scene.
Yeah.
So... I'm guessing that Al would not have to ask that question if you were present for it. So I'm guessing they did some refilming and rejiggering of those scenes.
And maybe made it worse.
Right.
In doing so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was funny, though. It's really funny how, like, useless Gushy is in this moment. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I get it at first glance, but if it took him more than half a second to figure it out, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So, Gushy only understands the situation when Leon pulls a gun out on him. Al waves off the guard, saying if he shoots him, Sam is finished. Alright, so what evidence do we have for that, by the way?
Well, they make up the rules as they go.
Yes.
Just like the rule that, it doesn't matter if you complete the leap or not.
Or for that matter, why does it matter where Leon Stiles is?
Exactly. That's my biggest problem with this story. Mm-hmm. Like, where are we getting that from?
Right.
We never talked about that before.
What's special about the waiting room that the person has to be there in order to leap?
Exactly.
Because it seems to me it doesn't matter where he is.
It's the room.
You don't want the person leaping out if he's not in the waiting room, if he's somewhere out there.
He's not in the project specifically.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
that's my biggest problem is why are we not giving some explanation?
Right.
Something. Give us something other than that's just the way it is.
Right.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
So, despite Al trying to talk Leon out of leaving the project, he ends up doing so, and Gushy ends up telling him how. Al is going to go after him. He tells Gushy to tell Ziggy to put a profile about Leon on a disc. But before Al can go after Leon, he has to tell Sam.
Okay, so a couple more things. And again, this whole scene is, all the things, right?
Yeah.
First of all, it was a mistake letting Stiles hear this conversation about we can't shoot him.
Right.
He can't die. Or we're going to lose Sam. These are really bad things for this dude to be hearing. Because to him, he knows now he's safe. Mm-hmm. You don't want the dude that's trying to escape to feel safe.
Here's my other thing.
Do they not have code words for this or something?
Right. Here's my other thing. Couldn't you get the guards to, in advance, somewhere else in the project, on the way out the door, arm them with something non-lethal?
Like the trank gun?
Yes.
That we know they have?
Yes, exactly.
That's my next point, too, is... So he leaves. He's going after Gushy's car, and, Gushy was very helpful. Oh, it's the blue one. Why are you helping him?
Right.
Al orders the corporal to make sure that nobody stops him. Because he doesn't want him getting killed. Got it. But why don't you order them to try and stop him without mortal force?
Right.
Like, we want to stop him. We just don't want to kill him.
Right.
But the order is make sure nobody tries to stop him.
Right.
Can we not try to stop him without shooting him?
Right.
There's got to be a way to try to do that.
Yes, and obviously there is a way, because that's a solution that Al ultimately ends up coming up with later in the episode.
When the guy just returns on his own.
Right. Anyway. Alright, so Sam in the past is about to untie the girls when Al appears, urging him not to. Sam goes in the other room to argue with Al, and we soon see the cops have caught up to him. Sheriff Hoyt getting word that his deputy is dead, and Leon is the reason why.
Yeah, so this is the third dead deputy now, the one that was in the hospital.
I guess I didn't get any information on Deputy Hoyt.
Sheriff Hoyt. Sheriff John Hoyt is played by Jim Haney. He is in 1 episode of King of Queens, 7 episodes of Dallas, and his deputy that he talks throughout the episode is Deputy Grimes. He's played by Joseph Malone. He was in Hocus Pocus, 1 episode of Seinfeld, 4 episodes of Dallas, and he has a bunch of choreographer credits.
Interesting.
He's a dancer, apparently.
Oh, cool. Al tells Sam that Leon was killed in the original history, and that Leon killed the sheriff's daughter, and then tells him the bad news, that Leon escaped the project, and Sam does not take this news very well, as you would imagine. Al is going after him, and Gushy is going to be the hologram.
And Sam takes all of this news very poorly.
Yes.
Like, every single line, he's like, wait, what? Wait, what? wait, what?
Right.
It's really a comical scene about something really serious. But also, like, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Sam's like, what do you mean you don't know for sure what I'm here to do? What do you mean? Like, he was acting kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing odd about any of this other than the fact that the dude escaped.
Right.
The rest of the conversation was pretty normal, and he was acting like every word of it was foreign.
So, I'm going to guess that it's because Sam does not exactly like being in the situation that he's in. It's a very uncomfortable situation for him. Being this killer who's, like, holding these two girls hostage. And maybe perhaps that pressure is getting to him a little bit more than usual.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he's acting that way. I mean, that's my take on it.
Right. Yeah. But they were debating, like, is what you're here to do is to keep Stiles from getting killed.
Right.
Either way, you don't want yourself to get shot. So,
right.
Like, that should be your number one goal, is to keep him from getting killed, whether that's what you're here to do or not.
Right. So Hoyt calls, and Al tells him that he has to believe that he will really kill his hostages in order to buy him time to get Leon. Sam answers the phone, talking to Hoyt, and eventually Sam has to make a threat against his hostages' lives that he really does not enjoy making. Al prepares to go and find Leon, grabs a gun. Gushy says it will be easy to find Stiles because he has a tracking device in the car that Ziggy has given him access to through the handwave. And I'm kind of thinking perhaps that maybe, if you want to be generous, that's why Gushy was being so helpful.
I guess, but wouldn't it have been easier if we didn't let him leave the building at all?
Yes, that's true. But maybe Gushy was thinking, oh, well, get this car so we can track you.
I guess, if he's going to take the car with the tracking device is the best option.
Right. Sam, meanwhile, tries to convince Carol and Becky that he didn't mean it, that he didn't kill those women, but he can't let them go. Becky asks, why do you hate us? A question that breaks his heart. He reassures her that he doesn't. And Sam ends up explaining that he is not Leon Stiles, but a time traveler from the future. He explains how Quantum Leap works and what happened with Leon in the future. And of course, Carol doesn't believe him.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to actually see Sam tell someone who he really actually is, because that's a rare thing.
It's a rare thing. I like it. But he also jumped to it really quickly.
Yeah.
Which I guess just goes back to how he does not know how to deal with his situation, and he cannot handle these people thinking he's a killer and he's going to hurt them.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like watching it this time, I didn't realize how quickly he tells them the truth.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
It's pretty quick. He's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. I'm from the future, and I'm like here to help everybody.
Right.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Of course, we can compare this to when Ben in the revival series tells Hannah the truth.
Yeah.
And how, the difference is it was a very last resort. He was stopping something that was going to, like, break history to tell her.
Right.
And here, I don't think that's the case. I think Sam's just trying to make himself feel better.
Yeah, basically.
So this was probably, like, a really bad idea, like, for the project.
Yeah.
To tell these people.
Yeah.
And then later, like, Becky ends up telling the police, like, everything, his name. There's so many instances where his name gets out there that, and this is something my husband has said a bunch, like, it should have really came back that, his name is in records in places. Well, that it keeps coming up.
You know what's funny?
Know about him.
You know what's funny is the very next episode has the same issue because his name comes out in that episode
exactly.
as well.
His name comes out in government records.
Right.
You'd think that, these would be bigger issues than they end up being.
Right. So Hoyt's deputy suggests negotiating, but Hoyt doesn't think you would negotiate with a man like Stiles. He's suggesting that maybe Hoyt, his deputy, is saying that Hoyt shouldn't be involved in this situation. Hoyt doesn't care. He intends to exact his revenge.
Right, because remember, Stiles killed Hoyt's daughter. Really, he should not be on this case.
Right. It's a conflict of interest. It's, it's definitely a situation where you should definitely recuse yourself from it.
Right,
sure.
And Deputy Grimes realizes that. And he knows, like, Hoyt wants to kill him.
Right.
That's Hoyt's plan.
But Grimes has almost no power in this
Sure,
situation.
he's just trying to talk to him as his friend. Like, are you sure you should be here? Like, for yourself? Like, is this really what you want to do? Which, will come down to being that's the whole point of this. But it's 1958. I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough about history to know, like, how big of a deal this would have been back then.
Right.
Like, a cop killing somebody that he didn't have to kill.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that would have been like back then, if there were even the same kind of standards that there are today.
I mean, I feel
which
like
are
it would have been
pretty lax even today. I
yeah,
would say.
I feel like it's more about his own conscience than actual legal ramifications.
I'm pretty sure that's all that his deputy is concerned about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's in charge.
Right.
He's the sheriff of the county, and we're in this small county. We're in Pine County, Oklahoma, according to Alice Plays. I don't know that was actually said in the episode. I'm not sure where that came from.
No.
Do you recall them talking about where they were?
No.
Okay.
All right. So Carol continues to express disbelief in Sam. Sam finds out that she's a med student and expresses some disbelief about that. Because she's not exactly the youngest person in the world. Mm-hmm. She says, well, just because you're not a cheerleader doesn't mean your life is over. She got a late start due to her husband, who she supported, and then he ended up leaving her and Becky.
Right. So the husband didn't want her to go to school and become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course not. It's 1958. And you know what? I feel like that should have been more of the point. Not about her age, but you're a woman in med school in 1958. That's impressive.
It is, yeah.
And I feel like that more should have been the shock than, oh, you think I'm too old.
Well, yes, but Sam is not from 1958. He's from 1999.
Right, but the way she reacts to his skepticism.
I get you.
She's like, what, you think I'm too old?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have been a more powerful line if she was like, what, you don't think a woman could be a doctor?
Right. Yeah. So Sam says he's a doctor, but Carol laughs, saying that the television says that he's illiterate. And she says, well, quiz me. And wouldn't you know it, he knows the answers to the questions.
Yeah, he answers, what are the 5 lobes of the lungs? And then he asks for a harder question, which is to name the bones in the foot. And, of course, Sam rattles them right off. It's a good thing his Swiss cheese didn't hit this particular subject.
Right, yeah.
That would have been a problem for this scenario. And then she's like, well, you must have memorized the book, a minute ago when you were looking at it.
The illiterate person managed to memorize the book?
Right, and that was his response. He was like, when's the last time you met an illiterate speed reader?
Right.
And she had this look
with
on
a photographic
her face.
Memory.
Like, oh my goodness, you're right. Either way, you're right. It doesn't make any sense that you could know this if you're Leon Stiles.
So Gushy appears, but he's not fully tuned into Sam's brainwaves, so he's fading in and out. Ziggy says that Sam has changed history, but not for the better. Sam is now going to get killed inside the house, and so too is Becky.
Yeah, in 90 minutes.
Al tries to find Leon and pulls up Ziggy's profile on him, and Ziggy, voiced by Deborah Pratt for, I believe, the final time in this series, gives him a less than 34% chance of success, and gives Leon's info out.
Yeah, so Leon's 26. He was raised in foster homes. He was first arrested at age 17 for assault, and this is the scene where we see his name on the screen, by the way, with an I.
With an I, okay.
He was the main suspect in a series of murdered prostitutes, and then was captured after abducting and killing a young woman, which we assume that's the sheriff's daughter, because he switched from prostitutes, and that was a bad idea, I guess, because now the police care. Yeah. And Ziggy thinks that Stiles is going to look for a woman who matches his prior victims.
A.K.A. prostitutes.
Right.
Carol is getting agitated because of the way Sam said Becky's name. She tells him to wake her up, but Carol won't let him, until Sam explains that he's trying to save her life by letting her go. Sam calls Hoyt and says he will release the girl in exchange for him not making a move on him. Hoyt agrees to the deal. Becky asks her mother before she leaves if Sam is going to hurt her. Carol just tells her daughter that she is so pretty. She does not answer the question.
Yeah, she tells her she's pretty, she's brave. They say they love each other, they hug.
And Becky leaves.
And she gets sent out the front door.
Gushy tells him the little girl is safe. Ziggy says saving the little girl seem to accomplish his mission.
Yeah, and this is where I get confused.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay, so...
Ziggy says there's a 91.6% chance he should be leaping now because he saved the girl. But why? She
didn't die.
She didn't die in the original history.
Right.
She only died because of something you did in the interim.
Right.
So how would this complete your mission?
Right.
Obviously, that's not what you were sent here to do if it didn't happen the first time around.
Yeah, the first time, the only person that died was
Leon
Stiles.
Right.
Yeah, Becky was not involved in that. She only became involved with that because Sam changed history.
Right. So why would Ziggy think there's a 91.6% chance he should leap now? I don't get it.
And the reason they're saying that he isn't leaping is because Stiles is not in the waiting room.
Right. And he can't leap unless Stiles is in the waiting room. And Gushy says, time and space can be a bitch. And I agree with that, Gushy, but you fail to explain why the leapy has to be in the waiting room.
Yes.
Give us some kind of explanation, even if it's, BS. Give us something. But there's no attempt at an explanation. They just state, well, he's not in the waiting room.
Right.
That's a problem. I don't know. Wouldn't it have made more sense if, he could leap, and now you're tracking down some random person out there? That would have been a fun story, I think. If we're tracking down the next leapy out in the real world who has no idea what the hell's going on.
That would be interesting, actually. You're right. Let's see. Oh, okay, so Sam still gets killed.
Which they're surprised by. I also don't know why they're surprised by that.
Right.
They're like, Hoyt went back on his deal. Well, did you think that, just because you said I'm going to give you a hostage, that he was going to not kill Stiles?
Right.
It just wasn't going to happen in that moment.
Right. So, yeah, as far as we're concerned, do they know Hoyt's motivations, correct?
Right.
So, what would releasing a hostage change for Hoyt?
Right.
He would still want to kill Stiles.
Exactly. And I don't know why they thought that had changed.
Right.
Or would change.
So
he's not just going to let him go.
Right. So Sam tells Gushy to contact Al, that he has to have Leon back at the project by midnight or Sam will be dead.
Specifically in the waiting room.
Right.
Not even in the complex is good enough. He has to be in the waiting room.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to ask, what's so special about the waiting room?
They don't start out in the waiting room, right? The first time someone leaped, didn't they just appear in the accelerator because that's where Sam was?
Yes. And then from then on...
They put him in the waiting room.
Right.
But...
Yeah.
We've had other times where they're not in the waiting room. Like Bingo.
Yes, because he left from the accelerator.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. Anyway. Stiles picks up a prostitute. Al pulls up, and here's Gushy give him the rundown.
I
about what's
have
going...
a point that I just thought of that totally breaks this whole thing.
Okay.
So, the last 30 years, Sam has been leaping without the project at all.
Yes.
There's nobody in the waiting room.
Correct.
So, no, somebody doesn't need to be in the freaking waiting room.
Well, Sam's leaping as himself. He's not leaping into other people. So.
Well, we don't know that for sure. We don't know exactly what was happening.
Fair enough.
But either way, leaping is happening.
Right.
And it doesn't suggest that anything at the project has anything to do with anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Gushy gives him the rundown of what's going on with Sam, and specifically mentions the fact that he has to be, back with Leon by midnight. Otherwise, Sam turns into a pumpkin. But anyway, Leon hangs out with the eager prostitute and marvels at the technology. And I want to know where this was. Back in 1999, the real 1999. I don't remember these monitors coming out. And
they did. This is one of those instances where the 1992 version of 1999, which was something the shows did all the way back in Genesis.
Yes.
Is they imagine these super futuristic things for only a couple years in the future, which was always this really weird thing.
Yeah.
But this instance of everything being voice activated, it's kind of accurate now.
Yeah.
You have smart homes now that, you talk to turn on the lights and to turn on the television.
Absolutely. This technology exists now.
Right.
But it didn't in the real 1999.
No, it didn't in the real 1999, and I'm still waiting for everything to be light up because that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I want sparkly... I want
the LED everything.
Yeah. And it's funny because I talked about this when I did my original Genesis review, is the fact that, they didn't have any idea that we would still be talking about this series 30-something years later. They didn't realize this show would have the longevity that it had.
Right.
So they weren't really concerned about what the actual 1999 was going to look like.
But it was just always so funny that they would make it the near future so futuristic.
Right.
What do you think so much was going to change in 5 years?
Yeah.
That's silly. Another thing, since we're talking about Genesis, I failed to mention this before. The scene where Al first got in his car and he's looking at the disc, right before that, we actually get a shot from Genesis.
Oh, yeah.
The shot of, the car driving in the desert is actually canned footage from Genesis that was reused. And according to a note on Al's place, it's not even the same type of car.
No? Yeah. That's funny. So he starts to get violent when Al ends up intervening, and he tells him what's going on. He shows Leon his reflection, and it's Sam Beckett's face that he sees in the mirror.
You skipped a little bit of Al outside before he goes in.
Oh, okay.
Gushy tries talking to Al.
Actually, I think I mentioned that.
Did you?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Where Al could hear him but couldn't see him at all. Did I miss you saying all of that?
I actually didn't say that part.
Okay.
But I did mention that Gushy basically talked to him and gave him the rundown about what was going on with Sam.
I was confused by this because Gushy says, Ziggy must not have done a good job of syncing our brain waves, meaning Gushy and Al, because Gushy's trying to appear as a hologram to Al to tell him the update about, you've got until midnight, right? Okay, I remember when you were talking about that. I was on my next thought and I was trying to hold it. Sorry. But what I'm really confused about, why are we going through the trouble of trying to match their brainwaves and send him as a hologram? Could he not just give him this message through the hand link he's holding?
Or, there are...
A phone?
Yeah.
Any kind of communications?
Yeah.
Why do we need to send him as a hologram to the present to give a message to Al?
Right.
And, go through the trouble of connecting brainwaves to make that happen.
Clearly, we don't have enough things going on. We have to do some busy work this week.
That was just a silly thing. All to give him the message, you have until midnight.
Right.
He's holding a hand link.
Right, you could just shoot him a text.
The way you do every episode.
Right.
Tell Al things through the hand link.
Right.
It should beep, and he should know the information.
Right.
The prostitute. She's played by Carolyn Lowry. She's actually credited as Hooker. She's in one episode of Charmed, an episode of Friends, and the movie Candyman.
Oh, okay. So Leon goes crazy and shoots Al, and he quickly leaves. Thankfully, Al is not dead because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. He'd love to stay and have fun with the grateful prostitute, but he must save his friend. How magnanimous of Al.
Yeah, and this whole scene was really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where we get to see Scott Bakula playing Styles, looking like Sam in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And then he shoots at Al, but also is shooting the mirror. He's trying to shoot away the reflection of Sam. And I thought it was done really beautifully. Mm-hmm. This is the action of the whole episode, is right here in this prostitute's little room.
Right.
And this poor girl, her room's been shot up, the mirror's trashed, there's blood on the floor.
And after she
doesn't even get paid.
and I'm sure she has no idea what the hell any of that was about.
Right. But yeah, I thought the whole mirror thing was done really, really well. And it's one of those instances, again, where we can see Scott's range, right? Usually he's playing Sam pretending to be someone else. But here, he's playing Styles looking at Sam.
I don't think Scott Bakula has had an opportunity to play too many villains in his career. He usually plays the nice guy. Though he was in a TV movie called, ironically enough, Nowhere to Run, where he was basically a bodyguard or an FBI agent or something along those lines, and he's guarding this woman, and eventually he turns out to be the bad guy. And we don't know this. We don't actually see him play the bad guy. He just kind of disappears, and he's run off with a bunch of money. And it's funny because I really didn't like that movie when I was a kid. They came out not too long after this because they turned Scott Bakula's character into a bad guy. I did not react well to that as a kid. I didn't like that at all. But anyway, yeah, that's just my random digression. Anyway, so Hoyt in the past questions Becky, and Becky ends up telling him about Sam's story, which she believes wholeheartedly. She tells him that Hoyt is holding his mom in the living room, and Hoyt uses the Beckett story as an excuse to begin because he thinks that Leon Stiles is unraveling.
Right. Like he wasn't already? Like
yes,
he just killed 3 deputies and I mean we didn't have enough reason to think that this is a bad situation.
Well, he's just using this as an excuse to, go in early and
right.
Yeah. So Carol asks Sam what the future's like, and Sam is surprised that she believes him. She says she doesn't know what to believe given all the inconsistencies. She says that nothing makes any sense anymore. Welcome to my world, Sam says. Carol asks what's going to happen, and Sam tells her that a man is going to come in and kill him because Stiles killed his daughter. Carol asks when. Sam looks at the clock and says soon. Stiles goes back to the project to get Gushy, where we cut to the future.
He just returns on his own.
Right.
So this whole thing was for nothing.
Okay, so my question is, how the hell did Stiles get back into the building?
Right. He escaped easy enough,
right.
But now he just walks in. Right.
They go, oh, hello, Mr. Beckett. Welcome back to the project.
I mean, he has the hand link. He took out Al's hand link. So does the hand link act as some sort of a key
But
card?
there's no guards in the front of the building to let people in? This is a top secret project. There's nobody monitoring who goes in and out?
There should be a lot of people monitoring this.
Yes.
And, I mean, they want him to come in.
Yes.
But at the same time, he comes in still at gunpoint.
Right.
Gets all the way down 10 floors.
Right.
And is able to just hold a gun on Gushy again.
Right. Gushy says that he can't help him, and just as he's about to shoot him, Al shoots him with a tranquilizer gun, which should have been long before.
It should have happened at the door,
right,
at the very least,
right.
Coming back in.
So they get...
And then they drag him to the waiting room.
Right.
Okay, I have another problem. This whole scene, he's like, send me back to where I came from, right? Because he's freaking out that he's in the future. Okay, first of all, why do you want to go back where you came from? Because you're in a really bad situation where you came from. Maybe you should be demanding to be sent, somewhere safe and not, like, to this house surrounded by cops.
Yeah, you have a time machine, and you're electing to go back to...
to that moment that you came from?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I guess he didn't know the cops were there because that happened after he left. But still, like, you're running from the cops. Maybe make a better demand than to be sent where you came from.
So this is just evidence that Leon Stiles is not a particularly bright guy.
He's not any brighter than Gushy. But here's my problem with Gushy in this scene.
Yep.
Gushy's like, it doesn't work that way. I don't have the power to send you back. Can't do it. Why did he not just be like, yes, I'll send you back. You got to go in the freaking waiting room. Bring him to the waiting room. That's your goal, is to get him in the waiting room.
Yeah, it's because Gushy wanted to be all dramatic and be like, well, I guess you're going to have to kill me.
Right, Gushy's about to get shot because he's refusing to send him back to the past.
Right.
You want to send him to the past. That's everybody's goal. You got to go to the waiting room to do it. That's not even a lie. That's how it's going to happen.
Right. So, yeah, just, okay, right this way into the waiting room. All right.
And it should happen any minute as soon as you're there.
Yeah. All right.
But no, instead they drag him there, after being tranquilized.
Okay, so Sam decides to free Carol, who's reluctant to leave. She asks about his friend Al, who has not returned, and Sam says he guesses he didn't make it. But just then, Al appears. Sam is happy to see him, but he's starting to sound a little desperate. Al tells him that Leon is safely back in the waiting room, and Sam prepares to leap, but nothing happens. Carol asks what's wrong, and he says, I'm not leaping. And the clock strikes midnight. Hoyt bursts in, frightening Carol, who stands in the way of him shooting Sam. Hoyt tries to get her to move, and Al says if she leaves, he's dead. And despite the fact that Al just said this, Sam says maybe you should go with him.
Right. He doesn't want her to get
right.
caught in the crossfire.
Right. Sam is being Sam Beckett. He's being the good guy. He knows that if she does actually move, Al just said he's going to die. He doesn't care about that. He wants to get her out of the crossfire. But Carol steps forward to plead for Hoyt not to do it. To not be a cold-blooded killer. Be remembered for being a loving father who misses his daughter. Not for this. Moved by his words, he tells his deputy to arrest the prisoner and basically recuses himself from the situation.
Right. So instead of shooting him, he's going to get arrested.
Right. And Sam is saved.
So we saved Leon's life, but we come to the conclusion that wasn't really the goal.
It was to save Hoyt's soul.
The goal was to save Hoyt from becoming a killer. And I'll argue Sam didn't do it. Carol did it.
Yes, absolutely.
Carol completed the mission here.
Well, it's funny. If Sam does not tell Carol the truth, this does not happen.
Right.
So
it all worked out perfectly.
Yeah. So it could be argued that Sam did this, and this is the only way that the mission was actually completed.
Right.
Is by doing that.
Right. But it's, again, and we talk about this almost every week, but was this the right person for Sam to leap into to save Hoyt?
Who would you suggest?
Maybe the deputy.
Except that the deputy seemed kind of impotent,
right. But maybe if Sam was there, he'd be more influential.
Maybe.
And I don't know, not like the killer that's about to get killed. Right. The one person that actually dies in this original history.
Well, how about leaping into Carol to make this very strange?
I mean, maybe. Maybe she, as Carol, he could have done exactly what Carol does.
Yeah.
By, speaking as the victim.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like anybody in this situation probably would have been a better choice than Leon. Because Leon's supposed to die.
Right.
In this scenario.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's kind of the person with the least power, really.
So, Sam thanks Carol for believing in him and says, "I'm ready to go now." And then he leaps. He
leaps into Starlight Starbright.
Which I believe we are not doing next week. We're skipping a week.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing that.
In 2 weeks, we'll get to that one.
Yep.
Which, based on the dates of, you threw all your pages, you said this aired October 20-something, so I'm thinking that was meant to be a Halloween episode.
Probably.
Which I don't think I realized that before.
This episode is supposed to be the Halloween episode?
Starlight Starbright.
Starlight Starbright? Okay.
I think that's going to line up to be really close to Halloween.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Which is funny because that's what Closure Encounters was.
Right.
In
that was
the
season 2 Halloween episode.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I'll definitely be talking about Closure Encounters a lot when we talk about Starlight Starbright.
Yeah, I mean...
They're the comparable episodes, and at the same time, they miss so many opportunities. So I'll have a lot to say about that.
Okay.
Next time we reconvene with Quantum Leap.
Yes.
And again, it's one of those kind of hokey, off-the-wall Season 5 episodes, because guess what? We're confirming aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if I should talk about this now, or if I should save my thoughts for that episode. I might as well, because we're on the topic. Basically, it's funny that the old series kind of, whenever it came across something supernatural, it came to the conclusion that the supernatural was real.
Right. A whole bunch of times.
Right.
Almost all of them.
With the exception of maybe Ghost Ship, which was kind of ambiguous about it.
It still
kind of
played to something hokey was happening.
Or even Portrait for Troyan, which eventually confirmed that
Portrait
ghosts are real.
for Troyan definitely takes the stance that ghosts are real.
Yeah.
So many instances. We take the stance that Bigfoot is real.
Yes.
Do we take the stance that vampires are real? I feel like that one wasn't.
Okay, that's another ambiguous moment because I don't think we actually
I don't think that one gave any confirmation of what side it was taking.
But the new series, anytime it came across something supernatural, which was like maybe 2 episodes, both instances it disproved the supernatural.
Very quickly, right? It was like, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
Where, yes, the original series took the stance that, hey, if we live in a world where time travel is real, all this other shit's real too.
Right, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And then, if you want to look at the books, which obviously aren't canon, but if you want to look at that kind of sub-canon, we've got Loch Ness Monster.
Yes.
And I think a couple other kind of supernatural instances there as well.
Yeah, I can't recall every single book, but I do remember the Loch Ness Monster one. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there was a couple others that tackle the supernatural.
We need to make this list of all of the supernatural stuff that exists in Sam Beckett's world.
Okay. I guess we'll do that for next time.
Yeah, we should.
All right.
So we got 2 weeks to work on that.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so one other topic I want to talk about from this episode. Last week when we were talking about it, I said, where are we? 2000, 2001 by now?
Yeah.
The episode confirms it is still 1999.
Yes. Which is where we were in the Lee Harvey Oswald
It fits with Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald took place February 14th through 16th, so we're in sequence with that.
Which you actually said was a problem in itself.
And that's the point, is all the timeline of season 5 doesn't fit, because at the beginning of season 4, we were in September 18th of 1999. And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at the last time we got a date, which was Lee Harvey Oswald, it makes sense we're probably in like March of 99 right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, also we've stated specifically it's been 5 years since he left. So how come time's not progressing?
So that would make the original leap happening in 1994?
94, if you're going by this date.
But I don't think that's accurate. I thought it was more like 95.
95.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't give a specific date in Genesis.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, right? Because there are inconsistencies, you can't rectify it.
Right.
You can't rectify exactly when the first leap happened because we don't have a date given in Genesis.
Right.
But I feel like everybody's stuck with 95.
Right.
Which goes from the leap back, not from Lee Harvey Oswald and this episode's timeline.
Right.
So yeah, it's inconsistent, and there's no way to fix it.
Other than the fact that we're, in a time machine, and perhaps we're watching events at the project happen
out of order.
Yeah, compared to where Sam is.
Could be, except they've referenced the leap back a couple of times.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true.
So they've confirmed that already happened.
They actually brought that up in Lee Harvey Oswald.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And this reminds me of a story that Brian told. I don't know if you remember hearing this one, or if you heard this one. But for the revival, Deborah Pratt actually contacted him and was like, when did Sam leap? Because they had to figure that out because they wrote those dates into the revival series. Like, not specific dates, but they were trying to figure out the timeline. And Deborah couldn't even figure it out. Like, when did Genesis take place? And she came to Brian Greene to help figure that out.
That's really funny.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's funny and it's cool. But, the creator of Quantum Leap contacts, Brian Greene to ask him when her own show began, basically.
Well, when the story took place in the future.
Yeah. That's funny.
And then it's an inconsistency like this that makes it impossible to answer. But I'm pretty sure 95 is where everybody settled.
Yeah.
Which means these 2 episodes, season 5 episodes, are the ones that are wrong. Because we're taking the stance that we leaped in 95.
Right.
There we go.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I mean, unless we're going to say all those other episodes were wrong, but why would we do that?
I mean, something has to be declared wrong.
Yes. Okay.
Unless we make a really convoluted web of somehow he changed how dates work.
And you know what? I don't feel like doing that right now, so I'm going to go with season 5 is wrong.
It's season 5.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Somebody messed up. That's what it comes down to.
Yes.
Somebody, and I guess I want to say Belisario himself, because he wrote Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes.
Didn't fact check that they'd already given us a date in the future of the date that we're being told that's taking place.
Yeah.
Who wrote the leap back? Do you recall?
It had to have been either Deborah Pratt or Donald Belzario.
That makes it worse, I think.
Yes. I'm pretty positive it was like the creators of the show that wrote the leap back.
Yeah. And then, I feel like there's also a person whose whole job is continuity.
Yeah.
Who should have been on top of this.
Yeah.
Like, you would think dates mentioned is one of those things they'd keep right on their bulletin board.
Mm-hmm.
And they would know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Oh, so actually that brings up one more shout out that I forgot to mention at the beginning. This girl on Facebook, Mo, she said that she listened to our podcast for the first time. Nowhere to Run was one of her favorite episodes, and she generally found our podcast entertaining. However, she disagrees with our take on season 5 and enjoying the craziness of season 5.
I mean, that's okay. Not everybody enjoys it.
Absolutely.
And that's, the show got canceled.
Yeah.
You can see not everybody enjoyed it.
I don't think that's a minority opinion. I wouldn't say it's the majority opinion either. Somewhere split. I think the fandom was split on season 5.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to more comments from her and her and I disagreeing on things.
Yeah,
here
well, you said her name is Mo?
I believe so, yes.
Well, welcome to the show, and thanks for commenting. And that reminds me, I wanted to a shout out to all of our listeners to head over to our IMDb.
Yes.
And give us a rating there,
yep.
please. I think we have to have 10 ratings or something like that in order for a rating to show up and be visible. So
gotcha.
that's my goal right now, is to get our rating to appear on our page.
Okay.
So hopefully you have a good number in mind.
Yes, we would appreciate
out of 10.
We would appreciate a good number.
I would appreciate a good, and if you don't want to give us a good number, then don't bother. But if you want to give us a good number, head over to IMDb, log in. It's a free account to register for IMDb, and just go to our show page and click the little number 10, please.
Sounds good. All right. Do we have anything else to say before concluding?
That is all I have. Yeah.
Obviously, great episode, but it does have some logic problems involved to get the story to work at all. All right, so we'd like to hear from you. What you think of this podcast? What you think of this episode? Stacie can be reached at.
Like Risha on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TV and Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.